A movie can change a career. A single role can make the world fall in love with a face, a voice, a laugh. For Julia Roberts, that moment came in 1990, when Pretty Woman turned her from a rising actress into America's sweetheart. But what if I told you 35 years later that story isn't finished? That Julia Roberts is ready to step back into the role that made her unforgettable. This is the story of a second chance. When Pretty Woman first appeared on the big screen in March 1990, no one could have predicted the cultural storm it would unleash. The film was supposed to be just another romantic comedy, but it quickly became something bigger. It was charming, daring, a little fairy tale, and a little bit of reality. Audiences didn't just watch it, they felt it. And at the heart of that magic was Julia Roberts with her unforgettable smile, her raw energy, and her ability to make Vivian Ward more than just a character. She became a symbol of hope, of love, of transformation. Julia wasn't a superstar before Pretty Woman. She had done smaller roles, yes, but Vivian was her breakthrough. In that single performance, she captured the world's imagination. Critics praised her charm. Audiences adored her warmth. Hollywood crowned her as its new leading lady. By the end of that year, Julia Roberts wasn't just an actress anymore. She was the face of a new era of romantic storytelling, but Pretty Woman wasn't just Julia's story. It was the beginning of a cultural wave. The movie itself became iconic, quoted, rewatched, and remembered even decades later. The soundtrack, the outfits, the unforgettable lines, everything about it became part of pop culture. It wasn't just a movie you watched once. It was a movie that stuck in your memory, a comfort film, a love story that made you believe in something magical. Still, what made it truly timeless was Julia Roberts herself. She gave Vivian a soul. Instead of being a simple Cinderella story, she made the character real. Funny, bold, vulnerable. You could see pieces of yourself in her, and that's what made people keep coming back. Julia didn't just play Vivian, she was Vivian. And in doing so, she cemented herself as one of the most beloved actresses of her time. After Pretty Woman, Julia's career exploded. She starred in film after film, from My Best Friend's Wedding to Notting Hill, from Runaway Bride to Erin Brockovich, the role that finally won her an Academy Award. She became a household name, the actress you could count on to deliver not just a performance, but an experience. When you saw Julia Roberts on a poster, you knew you were in for something special, but even stars fade a little with time. Hollywood changes. New faces appear. Stories evolve. Julia never disappeared, but the golden spotlight shifted. She took on different roles, some quiet, some experimental. She stepped back from the frenzy of Hollywood life, focusing more on her family, on selective projects, on quality over quantity. For her fans, she was still a queen, but the world saw less of her. And yet, nostalgia never dies. People still talk about Pretty Woman. They still replay that famous scene with the red dress, or the balcony kiss, or the unforgettable shopping moment. For decades, fans asked the same question: could there ever be a sequel? Could Julia Roberts ever return to the role that defined her? For years, the answer was no. Roberts herself had said it wasn't possible. The story had been told, but now, in 2025, something has changed. The idea of Pretty Woman 2 is no longer a dream, it's real. And it isn't just about revisiting the past. It's about giving both Julia Roberts and her character a second chance to shine. A chance to show how love, life, and courage can grow over time. This isn't just another sequel. It's the revival of a legend. The continuation of a love story that never truly ended. And at its core, it's the return of Julia Roberts not just as Vivian Ward, but as the star the world has been waiting for. The world has changed since 1990. Phones are no longer tied to walls. Love stories no longer wait for handwritten letters. And fairy tales look very different in the age of social media. Yet some emotions never fade: love, regret, the longing for a second chance. And that is where Pretty Woman 2 begins. This sequel doesn't try to repeat the old magic, it dares to evolve it. Instead of replaying the same moments, it asks a deeper question: what happens after the happy ending? The first film ended with Edward climbing Vivian's fire escape. a modern knight rescuing his princess. But life isn't a 2-hour film. What happens when the fairy tale fades into reality? When two people from very different worlds try to build something lasting? In Pretty Woman 2, we find Vivian Ward decades later. She is no longer the bright-eyed young woman walking down Hollywood Boulevard in her iconic boots. She is wiser now, shaped by choices, by years of living in a world that doesn't always treat love as gently as the movies. Vivian has built a life of her own, independent, dignified, resilient. She isn't waiting to be saved anymore. Instead, she has become the kind of woman who saves herself. Edward, too, has changed. Once the powerful businessman who thought money could solve anything, he is now older, facing the quiet struggles of a man who has built an empire, but wonders what it all truly means. Success has followed him, yes, but so has loneliness. For all his wealth, he carries a simple truth. Love, the kind he once found with Vivian, doesn't come twice. Unless fate decides otherwise, the story sets them on a collision course once again. After years apart, an unexpected event pulls Vivian and Edward back into each other's lives. It isn't a perfect reunion. Time has carved scars into both of them. Old wounds resurface. Choices from the past echo into the present. But that is what makes this story compelling. It isn't about a prince saving a princess anymore. It is about two people, grown and flawed, trying to see if love can survive the test of time. The world around them adds layers to the sequel. Los Angeles isn't the same city it was in 1990. The streets are faster, louder, more complicated. The fairy tale backdrop of Rodeo Drive shopping sprees has now become a mirror of class, power, and identity in a modern world. The movie asks, can love thrive in a society where appearances, status, and reputation matter more than ever? Or is love, pure and unfiltered, still the one thing that cuts through it all? But beyond the romance, Pretty Woman 2 carries a bigger theme: second chances. Vivian gets a second chance at love, yes, but also at rewriting her story. To show the world she is more than a chapter in Edward's life, she is her own woman, with her own voice, her own dreams, and her own struggles. Edward, too, is given the chance to redefine himself not as a man of power, but as a man of heart. And that is what makes this sequel more than nostalgia. It isn't simply revisiting beloved characters. It's about showing how they have grown, how they have stumbled, how they have survived. It's about reflecting our own lives back at us, because who hasn't wondered about a love they left behind, or a dream they never fully chased, or a chapter they wish they could rewrite? Julia Roberts steps back into Vivian's shoes not to relive the past, but to give the character new depth. This is Vivian's story as a mature woman, one who carries the weight of her journey but still believes in the possibility of happiness. The audience doesn't just see her as the pretty woman anymore, they see her as a complete woman, navigating life's mésanges with grace and strength, and that is the true genius of Pretty Woman. 2. It honors the charm of the original, the romance, the humor, the sparkle, while daring to ask bigger questions. It doesn't erase the fairy tale. It simply shows us what happens when the fairy tale grows up. So when December 2025 arrives, audiences won't just be watching a sequel. They'll be stepping into a story about love, loss, and renewal. About two people who once found magic on the streets of Los Angeles, and who now must decide if that magic still lives within them. A story that reminds us, love doesn't always come easy, but sometimes, if you're lucky, it comes twice. Asterisk, there are movie stars, and then there are legends. Julia Roberts is one of the rare few who became more than an actress. She became a symbol. That smile, that voice, that presence, it wasn't just her beauty, it was her energy. In the 1990s, she was unstoppable. Every studio wanted her. Every fan adored her. Every role she touched turned into something unforgettable. But time, even for legends, has a way of shifting the spotlight. And that is why Pretty Woman 2 is not just another film, it's Julia Roberts' great return. For years, Hollywood moved forward without her in the center of it all. New stars rose, trends changed, and the industry began chasing franchises, superheroes, and spectacle instead of classic star power. Julia never disappeared, but she stepped back. She chose smaller roles, meaningful projects, and a quieter life with her family. To her, fame was never the destination, it was the byproduct. Yet fans never stopped asking, when will she come back? Now, in December 2025, the answer has arrived. Pretty Woman 2 isn't just a sequel, it's a stage for Julia Roberts to remind the world why she became one of the most celebrated actresses of all time. This comeback isn't about nostalgia alone. It's about proving that charisma, authenticity, and heart never age. Why does this matter? Because Julia Roberts is more than a name on a poster. She represents a kind of storytelling that Hollywood has nearly forgotten. She is living proof that you don't need explosions or special effects to hold an audience, you just need presence. Her return brings back the idea that a single actor with raw talent and honesty can carry an entire film. And the role of Vivian Ward couldn't be more perfect for this moment. Just as Julia herself has grown, aged, and transformed, so has her character. The parallels are striking. Vivian was once the wide-eyed dreamer, stepping into a life she never imagined. Now, decades later, she is wiser, layered, and complex. Julia steps back into this role as if no time has passed, yet with all the experience she's gathered along the way. It's not just acting, it's life reflected on screen. This comeback also challenges the industry itself. Hollywood has long been criticized for pushing aside actresses once they pass a certain age, while their male co-stars continued to headline films well into their 60s and 70s. Julia's return flips that script. She isn't coming back as a side character or as a faded version of herself. She's coming back as the lead, the star, the heart of the story. That is powerful. That is history. For the audience, it feels deeply personal. Many of the fans who fell in love with Julia in 1990 are now older themselves. They've grown up, faced heartbreak, built families, lost people they loved, and learned that life rarely goes as planned. Watching Julia return in Pretty Woman 2 is like watching a reflection of their own journey. She isn't frozen in time. She has aged with them. She has lived with them. And now, she is telling a story that speaks to them in a way the original never could. But Julia's comeback isn't just about Vivian. It's about Julia Roberts, the actress, reclaiming her crown. She is stepping back into the public eye with grace, with confidence, and with the kind of star power that never truly faded. It's a reminder that talent doesn't expire. Charisma doesn't vanish. And legends never really go away, they just wait for the right moment to shine again. As the trailers drop, the red carpets roll out, and the anticipation builds. There will be one name everyone is talking about, Julia Roberts. Not as a memory, not as the actress from the 90s, but as the icon of today, proving that you can always write a new chapter in your story, and maybe that's the real magic of this comeback. It isn't just a movie star returning. It's a message to everyone watching. No matter your age, no matter your past, there is always room for a second act. Julia Roberts is showing the world that dreams don't have an expiration date. They simply wait for the moment you are ready to live them again. Asterisk, there are movies we enjoy. And then there are movies that define generations. Pretty Woman was one of those rare films. It wasn't just a love story on screen, it became a part of people's lives. It was the film couples watched on dates, the movie friends quoted endlessly, the comfort story you returned to when you needed to believe in something beautiful again. 35 years later, the promise of Pretty Woman 2 carries that same weight. It isn't just a sequel, it's a cultural event. The anticipation is unlike anything Hollywood has seen in years. Fans who first watched Julia Roberts light up the screen in 1990 are now parents, even grandparents, ready to relive that magic with a new generation. Younger audiences, who may have only heard of the film through streaming platforms or family recommendations, are curious to see how a classic love story can evolve for the modern age. The excitement cuts across ages, across backgrounds, across decades of film history, and at the center of it all is Julia Roberts, stepping back into the spotlight with Richard Gere rumored to return by her side. The possibility of seeing them together again, decades later, carries a kind of electricity that no new pairing could match. It's not just about the characters, it's about the actors themselves. Two icons reunited. Two careers woven into one timeless story. It's nostalgia, yes, but it's also something greater, the chance to witness living history. But what truly makes Pretty Woman 2 special is its timing. In a world filled with reboots, remakes, and spin-offs, this film dares to do something different. It doesn't simply recycle the past. It reflects the present. It shows us how love changes, how people evolve, how second chances can be even more meaningful than first ones. This is not the same fairy tale from 1990, it's a more honest one. A story that says life is messy, complicated, unpredictable, and yet love still matters. Think about the legacy of Pretty Woman. For decades, it stood as the ultimate romantic comedy. It was playful, funny, emotional, and endlessly quotable. But Pretty Woman 2 has the chance to redefine that legacy. If the original was about finding love when you least expect it, the sequel is about keeping love alive when the world tries to pull it apart. That's a story for every generation because everyone knows the truth. Falling in love is magical, but staying in love is the real miracle. Julia Roberts' return makes this film more than just a story, it makes it a statement. A statement that women can lead blockbusters at any age. A statement that great storytelling still has a place in a world of franchises and superhero spectacles. And most of all, a statement that some stars never fade. They only wait for the right moment to remind us why we fell in love with them in the first place. So as December 2025 draws closer, the world is holding its breath. Will Pretty Woman 2 capture the magic once again? Will Julia Roberts deliver the performance of a lifetime, redefining both Vivian Ward and her own career? The questions swirl, but one thing is certain. This film has already succeeded in one powerful way. It has made us believe in second chances. And maybe that's the legacy this sequel will leave behind. Not just the return of a beloved story, but a reminder that life is never finished, that love can return when you least expect it, and that every ending can be the beginning of something new. So when the lights go down in theaters this December, and Julia Roberts steps onto the screen once more as Vivian Ward, audiences everywhere won't just be watching a movie. They'll be watching history. They'll be witnessing a comeback. They'll be holding on to the hope that sometimes the prettiest story of all is the one that gives us a second chance.